Hey guys, let me hope you're doing good wherever you are around the world. It's a beautiful morning here in Oklahoma. For those who missed us last session, we went over chapter 15. There wouldn't have racism in football if it was not in society. And again, today I will be continuing with the chapter 16. There is no victory without a battle. All the victories that have been won in the past, there were definitely battles involved. And again, in the following paragraphs throughout this chapter, I'm going to demonstrate examples of battles that have been won through hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice. The purpose of mentioning these battles is to show what's required of us to win over racism that has dominated our societies and football. I'm bringing back Africa as a world into the spotlight. It's a continent that has faced so many challenges and it's still experiencing a lot of turmoil even today. It's a continent that has been portrayed by many as poor and with the dark side where nothing good can come from. Despite the fact that it's rich in mineral resources, without a doubt, the continent has been bullied and humiliated for so many years, including its people. I'm devastated by this. When will African countries be free from exploitation from highly structured and invested countries? The constant struggle started when European explorers and missionaries began penetrating into Africa in the 19th century. Explorers like Henry Stanley revealed that the continent was full of raw materials that could be exploited to fuel the Industrial Revolution. European countries were slow to realize the benefits of claiming land in Africa, but when one or two started, the rest did not want to miss out. On the afternoon of Saturday, November 15, 1884, in Berlin, Germany, 14 countries, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Norway, unified from 1814 to 1905. Turkey and the United States of America were represented by ambassadors and envoys to agree to the rules of African colonization. From 1884 to 1914, the continent was in conflict as these countries took territory and power from existing African states and its people. The Europeans called Africa the Dark Continent because it was unknown to them. This got mixed up with the more sinister idea of darkest Africa, a place where the inhabitants were savage and brutal. Europeans, after the Industrial Revolution, considered industrial towns and technology to be signs of civilization. African people did not have all this, so they were branded uncivilized. These attitudes allowed European colonists to ignore the established African tribes and kingdoms with their rich histories and cultures. Do you think African countries and its people are free from ignorance today? By 1914, the only independent African states were Liberia and Ethiopia, the only African countries that are widely believed to have never been colonized by European nations. I wish Kenya would have been one of them. The area of West Africa that's now called the Democratic Republic of Congo is a good example of what happened to many African countries during the scramble of Africa. African people stood for themselves and fought effortlessly to be free from colonial power. Up to date, each and every country has gained its independence. Even though they gained the independence, they have struggled with many challenges, including poverty, corruption, power-hungry leaders, tribalism, and neocolonialism. They never truly escaped imperial control. Today, European powers are still scrambling for African resources. It has contributed to the economic, social, and political underdevelopment. With the neocolonialism, European nations have deliberately continued to survive through colonial systems in independent African states. They are turning them into victims of political, mental, economic, social, military, and technical forms of domination, which are carried out through indirect and subtle means that do not include direct violence. Remember that. Most African countries and its people are still fighting against all this hooliganism and hooliganism that have been directed towards them. For all these years, they have shown consistency and commitment to be free from colonial powers, and this itself is what is required to get the victory that's needed. This needs to be also applied in fighting against racism in our societies and football. Winning over racism is manageable. It requires relentless efforts. South Africa wouldn't be free from apartheid today if they didn't fight. Racial segregation had existed in the white minority who governed South Africa, but the practice was extended under the government led by the National Party from 1948 to 1994. The National Party named its racial segregation policies apartheid. From the 1940s through 1990s, apartheid kept the country's majority black population under a small white minority's control. Someone may be wondering, what's apartheid and why was it even carried out in a country dominated by black people? Apartheid was a former social system in South Africa in which black people and other racial groups had the same political and economic rights, but black people were forced to live separately from white people. Do you truly believe that black people in South Africa are free from this system today? That's the question. You can answer yourself. South Africa is a country that has come a long way since institutionalized racism was planted on them. It's a perfect example for other countries throughout the world dominated by racists to learn from, given that Africans that lived there had to fight for their own rights in their own land. They indeed made progress. Though they might still be struggling with poverty and corruption today, they won against the racism that was forced on them. We can not only learn something from South Africa, but also the United States of America. These two countries share some similarities, and they indeed share some similarities. South Africa and the USA are both highly diverse and deeply divided countries. Both countries struggle with high rates of violent crime. In some areas, both have jam-packed prisons. Prison filled mostly with black people. Both countries have dark history of racism and oppression toward black people, and up to date struggles with the deeply rooted racism in many sectors of society. In both countries, black people fought a bitter struggle for political freedom and the right to vote. Both the USA and South Africa are countries of contrast, with areas of unbelievable affluence and areas of hate-wrenching poverty. Today, even though there is still racism in these two countries, the dream they dreamed of came true, though not completely. The US and South Africa are two perfect countries that European nations, especially Italy, Spain, need to learn from. The fact that racism is still so prevalent there. We must collectively work as a team to eradicate this contagious disease from our societies. When we wipe it off from these societies, football will be free, and these beautiful, talented players will not be subjected to any form of discrimination. The real struggle starts now, and it's time to act. Wow, it's a short chapter actually. And again, this is more mainly on victories that have been won in the past. And you saw I highlighted apartheid in South Africa, and given the fact that the system was planted on a country dominated by black people, it shows you that they had to fight for their own freedom. And this applied to even in America here, where black people are minority and white people are majority, and they had to fight for the rights to vote, the right for their civil rights. And again, this is something that can be also learned by other Europeans like Spain, Italy, where black people or black players also go through the intense racism in football. And again, it's a quite relevant chapter, and that's why I came up with the chapter. There's no victory without a battle. And hopefully enjoy the entire chapter. It's a very short one, and hopefully it inspired you. I will see you in the next session, and always stay safe outside there. Thank you. I love you guys. I do.